r/ask Reddit. What's your top wow, that actually worked moment? Friend's dad a couple years ago has an old Windows 2000 computer with a dead hard drive. Normally this wouldn't be an issue as it's an old ass machine, just get a new one. But unfortunately this hard drive had the only backup copy of some very important family pictures since the external HDD they kept important file backups on died a few weeks prior. Went through every troubleshooting step I could think of in order to recover the data and nothing. As far as I could tell, drive was completely shot. So in one last desperate attempt I blew on the connectors and the ports like I was trying to get my NES cartridge to work. Flicked the drive with my finger and gave it a small dramatic speech about needing to stay alive for the family. Ducking thing booted. Stayed on long enough for me to grab the files and then went dead. Whoa. I half ran a stop sign that got ran a lot. Cop pulled me over. By half ran, I mean, I was doing a California slow roll through, and halfway through I saw the cop and stopped. He walks up, asked me if I knew I ran the stop sign. I said yes. Then, I don't know why, but I asked, may I have your mercy? He takes a step back, looked a little perplexed, runs my license, comes back, and just says, today, I am merciful. Stop running stop signs. Let off with a warning. Sounds like the beginnings of a bad porno. Got a free watch offer from a decent company I'd bought from before, but you had to spend over $300. I added 4 of the free watches, which were usually $75 into the cart, which registered as $300. I went to check out and a green minus $300 appears in the bill. Added my shipping address and 2 weeks later they came. That seems like a pretty good bug in the website. Good job taking advantage of it. After hours of trying to repair a broken digital camera, I went to throw it away. I shrugged and dropped it on the linoleum. Heard a horrible crack. The motor turned on, making a jackhammer sound before it clicked and became a smooth hum. The camera worked after that. Good old percussive maintenance. Percussive maintenance is about 90% of how I fix shit. The other 10% is swearing at it. The entire grade went on a field trip to a bowling arcade place to celebrate completing middle school. I was at a claw machine. Not sure exactly what it's called. I'm talking about the machine where you direct a claw and try to grab a toy with it. And I asked my friend to look at the claw from the side to see if it was lined up with the toy I wanted. Just then, a boy from another class walked up and said to me, "You know that those are a scam, right?" I was flustered and hit the button to lower the claw without even waiting for my friend to tell me if it was lined up properly. The claw came back up with 2 toys and dropped them in the collection box. The boy was silent for a moment before saying that was actually pretty good and walking away. I'll never be so cool again in my entire life. My very small company organized a bowling night once, and one of my co-workers, who was technically my superior, kept trying to give me tips to bowl better. He was just being helpful, but I was several drinks in, so at some point I grabbed the ball, yelled, "You know what? I don't need your effing advice," and slammed the ball down the lane and walked away without looking. Strike. I didn't bowl the rest of the night. I was a network engineer for an ISP at the time, and I had to get to a mountaintop where one of our towers were located to perform some maintenance. Had to ride a snowmobile all the way up there, and when I got there I realized I forgot the keys to the enclosure. Not to be defeated, I tried to pick the lock, and I got it to open after about 20 minutes of trying. Yay, I didn't have to quit for the day and got the work done. Well done. Sounds like a nice gig having to use a snowmobile to get to the job. I was flying somewhere. After everyone else was boarded, I went up to the gate agent and asked about being upgraded to first class. After a bunch of typing on her computer, she said sure and asked how I would like to pay for it. I said by asking nicely. To my amazement, she gave me a boarding pass for my new first class seat. I'm a straight dude with a lot of gay friends. One of them jokingly refers to me as king of the gays. I was visiting some friends in another city a few weeks ago and we try to go into a gay bar, but the doorman tells me there's a cover charge. I, being drunk, blurted out, "But I am king of the gays," and he laughed and let me in. Ha ha ha. I was dating a girl who wanted to take her gay friends to Boys Town one night and I went with them. At all the bars we normally went to she usually got in free, cause boobs, and I would have to pay a cover. However, in Boys Town that logic goes out the window. She got charged and me and the boys waltzed right in. I was enjoying giving her shit about it. Then we went to the last bar of the night and the bouncer tells me it's a $5 cover. I'd had a few and was also drunk on my newfound cachet. I said, "Hey man, all the other bouncers on the street didn't charge me." He looked me up and down super skeptically and asked, "Why?" Ego deflated. Told this girl in 2nd grade I was a psychic just to troll and she didn't believe me, of course. So she asked me to predict something. I said, "You're going to scream right now," and she was saying, "That's dumb. Why would I?" A kindergartner playing tag randomly fell and rolled back into her legs and she screamed. She was really scared of me after that, lol. Playing dodgeball in like 4th grade, I was one of the few people still in the court. Saw a boy aiming straight at me from the line. I remember staring at him, as if it was all in slow motion, and just knowing that ball wasn't going to hit me. He flung it and I made the smallest little sidestep, never breaking eye contact, and barely dodged the ball. Everyone lost their shit, which I remember so clearly because I was a huge nerd at the time and felt badass for once. This was like 20 years ago. Noticed an error on our website that would affect customers. Emailed the web team about it thinking they'd ignore it until someone higher up brought it to their attention. They read it, implemented changes, and CC'd my director to thank me for the input. Hey, as a web person, thanks. I'd personally rather know from an internal user than an upset customer or something even worse coming down the line. It's better to speak up rather than have it go downhill and make life so much worse for us than something we can correct. Decided on a whim to make some peanut sauce, peanut butter, soy sauce, a little water, and it was looking close but kind of clotting when I stopped stirring. Randomly remember learning that vanilla goes in cookies and shit, BC it helps stuff mix. So add a dash of vanilla and the sauce instantly comes together. Felt like a mad genius. This is actually really good information. I'm going to use your vanilla trick in the future. Fans on my old MacBook had stopped working. Searched on YouTube for a fix and found a video that said sometimes there can be lint dust etc. clogging up the spinny mechanisms. A good thumping can get them back in order. The guy in the video proceeded to hammer the computer with his fists and the fans came back on. I shrugged, gave it a shot, and to my surprise, they hummed back to life and I was back in business. Still can't believe it. Went to check into a hotel, and I asked him if there was a parking fee. He replied with yes. It's $15 a night. I asked, any chance you could waive it? He replied with, yeah sure. I was like, okay, thanks lol. Saved me $60. I worked for Marriott for 5 years. If you're nice and respectful, you can get a lot of free upgraded shit at hotels. The employees have to deal with so many a-holes during a shift that giving a genuinely nice person free stuff feels really good. The first time I hit on a girl, we ended up sleeping together that night and the whole time I was thinking, whoa, that actually worked. The brakes on my crappy SUV went completely out one day. So instead of paying for a tow truck, my dad decided to connect my car to his pickup truck with a big chain. My car in front, dad in back, and have me drive to the mechanic shop. My car could still accelerate just fine, just no brakes whatsoever. So we called each other on our cell phones and every time I needed to slow down or stop I'd just tell him and he'd hit the brakes on the pickup, which would either slow my car or yank it stopped if he did it too abruptly. It was completely stupid, illegal, and definitely dangerous, but we got there just fine and didn't have to drop $100 on a tow truck, so it worked. Did this with my dad in a car. I broke the axle or something IDK. Car would turn left but not right. He was in front pulling and I was in the back. It was a harrowing 20-minute drive on city streets, but we made it only to find it would cost more to fix the car than it was worth, so we scrapped it for $200, which my dad kept, technically his car. Hi, I'm Gandhi, and if Britain doesn't get the hell out of India, I'm going to starve myself. Hi, I'm Russ Dog, and if my clinical depression doesn't get the hell out of my head, I'm going to continue eating pizza rolls until there are none left. When I was about 11 and computer monitors were all just becoming flat screen, we bought a shitty little LCD. Just my luck, the plug didn't have a third pin and short circuited within a week of getting it. The monitor's colors were all messed up, flickering between distorted, random colors, and outright all becoming one solid color then going back. This happened momentarily every few minutes. My parents refused to buy me a new one because I broke my new monitor. It wasn't my fault. So being the bored kid I was, I just did my best to use it anyway. I remember it so very clearly. I was playing Warrock, and the screen blacked out right before a firefight and got me killed. I was like, alright, if my parents won't buy me a new one since this is half working, so I'll just break it completely. Without a second though, I punched it in the center right then and there. This fixed the monitor. There was discoloration around where I punched it and a line through the middle, but no more random colors, no more flickering. A few years later I got a new monitor and my dad was going to take my old one. I moved it from my computer to his, and when I first set it up, the colors were all messed up. I told him I knew how to fix it. I punched it again expecting it to break. They all looked at me like I was insane and asked what the hell I was doing. It worked. It still works. 12 years later and he's still using the same monitor with a line going through it where I punched it. Pretty much anyone who does programming. Pressing the learn button on my garage door opener to program it with my car universal remote yesterday. One of life's hidden pleasures. Programming your garage door opener with a new remote. Went to a dirt track race in the middle of Illinois. My friend went to buy his own tickets. I walked up the front gate and pulled out a Missouri Conservation Heritage card I bought for $2 to renew my turkey hunting tax. I walked up the front gate, drunk mind you, and said in a friendly but stern and confident voice, "Sir, this is my Missouri Conservation Heritage card." Gestured to the gate and followed up with, "I think this should be fine enough." He goes, "Missouri Conser what?" Even more stern, "Missouri Department of Conservation Heritage card. Sir, it says right here." He just goes, "Oh right. Department of Missouri, yes right away, go on through." I said thanks and walked in. I think the confidence I showed, as if my card meant anything, let alone in another state, was enough for him to go, "Who cares, I'll just let him in." I saved like $7, but it was a fun story when my buddy asked how I got in before him. Had a friend whose behavior was kind of sketchy and suspicious. All kinds of red flags with this guy, but no real proof of his sociopath nature, just several suspicions. So one day I checked up on one of his stories. He'd have brand new vehicles for a while, then they'd mysteriously vanish. He claimed to be rich, from mafia money, and he just got tired of that new Corvette or motorcycle or whatever. So I called the dealership where his last expensive car had been purchased and pretended to be a private detective working on behalf of a rich client who was thinking of doing business with my then friend. Just checking out his reliability. I told the guy, "We see he bought a Corvette." The guy told me everything about how my friend put some short money down on the car, then failed to make even a single payment afterwards, and successfully evaded the repo man for months until they finally caught up to him. I couldn't get away with it today, with everyone suspicious of phishing social engineering. Back then people were more naive and would spill the beans easily if you sounded legit on the phone. I bought a house with a kitchen that hasn't been updated since the 60s, mostly because I love the light brown oven. Shortly after moving in, the oven stopped working correctly. We couldn't find anybody to repair it, so we found the elements at a scrapyard and replaced them. It still didn't work. We were about to have it replaced when I begged for one more chance. The oven had a clock on it and a time bake function, so you could set your oven to bake something at a specific time. The clock was broken when we bought the house. I decided to try cooking something on the time bake setting instead of regular bake. It turns out that the dial had been put back on at the wrong angle, so time bake equals regular bake. I've been using the oven for maybe 3 or 4 years now and it's not perfect, but it gets the job done. I had a really tough math problem in calc. I didn't know the answer to something that used hip hop rap sales as a reference. I didn't know it, ran out of time, and it was the last question on the assignment. So I wrote rap died in 1996 with Tupac. She marked it right, obviously out of oversight, but my buddy beside me tried really hard to answer it, got the wrong answer, and the professor marked him incorrect. He was flabbergasted. I walked into a festival at midnight, no ticket, showed the security guard my wrist. He flashed his flashlight at my wrist and pushed me through the gate. Back in the 80s my family had no phone, and as a teenager I had to call my friends from a payphone. Long girly calls cost me a fortune. These were the old dial phones. You had dart to put your money in and then it allowed you to dial. And I noticed that when I dialed a particular digit there were a corresponding number of blip sounds in the earpiece. I also noted that when I depressed the button which the receiver sat on there was the same tone. So I tried hitting that button the amount of times for each digit of my friend's telephone number. Egg the number 6,654,321. I'd hit the button 6 times, pause and 6 times, pause and 5 times and so on. That allowed me to bypass putting in money and make free calls. Early hacking. The first time I turned on my computer, it was my first time building a computer and I was worried. My friends assured me that it was simple but I barely knew what I was doing. So much euphoria when it turned on without a hitch. In college, I took a literature review course that included Dante's Divine Comedy. I had read it at 16 because it was mentioned in SE7N. I was an edgelord dipshit, not a literature connoisseur. Inferno is great and Purgatorio is more interesting than I'd thought, but Paradiso is boring as hell. 21-year-old me declined to reread any of them prior to the essay test for this class. I just decided to bullshit my way through based on what I remembered from years before. Got an A. I met a girl in Thailand who bragged about her family and how her dad is a record exec. She said if I ever dropped their name at a BA lounge they would let me in. I was in London 2 years later and at the airport I asked them to look up the name at the lounge and they let me right in. I remember playing hide and seek with my cousins when we were kids. We were hiding when my youngest cousin at the time, about elementary school age, came into the room. I said, "There's nobody here but us chickens, like in a cartoon I'd seen." She said, "Okay," and left. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.